Another day, another barren rock, Xerox muttered, his upper tentacles curling in irritation as he leaned over the glowing console of the Luminera. The view outside offered little relief, just another planet spinning silently in the void, its blue-green surface turning beneath the stars. 57 surveyed worlds this cycle, and what's our grand discovery? A species of moss that eats bugs. Riveting. From the command chair, Commander Vine clicked her mandibles, the sharp sound cutting through the low hum of the bridge. Need I remind you, science officer, barren rocks pay your nutritional stipend. Her multifaceted eyes did not leave the displays, but every crew member knew the weight of her stare could scorch through armor plating. All respect, Commander, Xerox said quickly, lowering his voice, but a little excitement wouldn't kill us. He adjusted his console, his four eyes narrowing at shifting readings, anything to avoid her glare. The bridge of the Luminera pulsed with quiet efficiency. 8 officers, each from different worlds, worked their stations. Their vessel was one of the Confederation's most advanced explorers, meant for discovery at the edges of mapped space. Instead, after 6 months of cataloging lifeless planets, even the most patient among them had begun to fray. It was Navigation Officer Plex who broke the monotony. His gill slits flared wide as he straightened at his post. Commander, unusual energy signatures, Northern Hemisphere. Vine's antennae twitched. Define unusual, Officer Plex. We've already chased lightning storms twice this month. Not storms, Plex said, eyes wide. Radio waves. Patterned, repeating. Primitive, but deliberate. That brought silence. Every officer looked up. Radio meant intent. Radio meant communication. Confirm, Vine ordered. Plex's fingers danced across his console. Confirmed, Commander. The signal is artificial. Structured. Communication frequencies, not natural static. He hesitated, then swallowed. There's more. I'm reading bursts of energy consistent with, he glanced around the bridge. Rudimentary nuclear fission. The weight of the words froze the room. Nuclear meant technology. Technology meant intelligence. Well, Xerox murmured, his earlier boredom vanishing as adrenaline coursed through him. Perhaps this rock isn't so barren after all. Communications Officer Neri, translucent skin pulsing with neural fire, adjusted her equipment. Commander, I've isolated the transmissions. Wait, no. This can't be right. Spit it out, officer, Vine ordered. Neri's fingers trembled on her console. They're in standard galactic English. Human language. Vine's exoskeleton stiffened audibly. Impossible. This sector is 70 light-years from the nearest registered human colony. There are no settlements here. Nevertheless, Neri said quietly, the signals are unmistakably human. Military tone, encrypted bursts, tactical vocabulary. Security Chief Drax bared his teeth, scales along his jaw rattling. Humans. Just what we need, aggressive, unpredictable primates with nukes. Your xenophobia is showing again, Lumi, the medic, said dryly without looking up. Her 6-fingered hands continued to sort through medical supplies. Some of my best colleagues at the academy were human. Colleagues who probably shot things for fun on weekends, Drax muttered. Enough, Vine snapped. Regulations are clear. An unregistered settlement of a Confederation species requires immediate investigation. Prepare the shuttle. Plex, maintain orbit. Xerox, Drax, Neri, you're with me. Xerox's tentacles twitched with unease and excitement all at once. A lost human colony. His mind buzzed with possibilities. Generation ships had vanished centuries ago. Could this be one of them? Drax, meanwhile, checked his stun pistol with deliberate care. Remember, Commander, humans shoot first and ask questions later. It's practically their motto. And, Xerox added lightly, securing atmospheric gear to his harness, they deep fry everything. No one laughed. 90 minutes later, the shuttle pierced the cloud cover, revealing vast stretches of green forest broken by clearings. In one clearing stood structures, primitive, but undeniably human-built. As the shuttle descended, figures moved below, pointing skyward. "They're not panicking," Xerox observed, leaning close to the viewport. "That's promising." "Give them time," Drax growled. The shuttle touched down at the settlement's edge, engines whining as the landing struts settled into grass. Vine activated external speakers, her mandibles clicking softly before she spoke. "This is Commander Vine of the Galactic Confederation vessel Luminera. We come in peace and seek to establish diplomatic relations." The reply came not in words of welcome but in action. Armed humans poured from the buildings, fanning out in a perimeter around the shuttle. Metal glinted in their hands, rifles, unmistakable even to alien eyes. "Lovely," Drax muttered, claws flexing. "I told you so." A voice crackled over a broad-frequency channel, harsh and commanding. "Unidentified craft, you've entered restricted airspace. Power down all systems and prepare to be boarded. Any hostile move will be met with lethal force." Xerox felt his heart quicken. This was no simple colony. This was a fortress. Vine's mandibles clicked once, a sound like steel grinding on steel. "Well," she said calmly, though her eyes were cold as space. "It seems humanity has been busy in our absence." The moment the shuttle's hatch hissed open, heat and tension spilled inside like a second atmosphere. Sunlight cut across armored figures surrounding them, rifles steady, eyes hard. There was no mistaking it, these humans were trained soldiers, not settlers caught off guard. Security Chief Drax stepped forward instinctively, claws twitching toward his weapon. Commander Vine snapped out a sharp order. "Holster. Now." The unspoken truth hung heavy, a single wrong move would end in blood. A voice rang out from behind the firing line. "Step out, slowly. Hands visible." The tone carried authority, female, steady, not a suggestion but command. Vine led the way down the ramp, her exoskeleton clicking against the metal surface. Xerox followed, tentacles trembling despite his effort to appear composed. Neri kept her translucent hands raised high, her skin flashing anxious pulses. Drax descended last, jaw set in a snarl. The circle of humans closed tighter. Their uniforms were plain but functional, durable fabric, armored vests, insignia sewn by hand rather than mass-produced. Yet the discipline in their posture spoke volumes. These weren't scavengers scraping by, they were a military force, hardened by years of readiness. One soldier stepped forward, lowering his weapon just enough to gesture with authority. "You're under the custody of the Colonial Defense Corps. Cooperate and you'll live to explain yourselves. Resist, and you won't." Xerox whispered to Vine, "They have organization, chain of command, this isn't a forgotten outpost." "Silence," Vine replied softly. The aliens were marched toward the settlement. Structures loomed in the distance, crude compared to Confederation architecture, but functional, fortified. Wooden frames reinforced with steel plating, barricades stacked along the perimeter, lookout towers rising above rooftops. It was a village shaped into a fortress. Inside the gates, the streets bore scars of constant tension. Children darted between bunkers, casting wary looks. Civilians worked with practiced efficiency, moving supplies, reinforcing walls, repairing rifles. Life here was survival turned routine. The aliens were shoved into a windowless building at the settlement's center. Metal benches lined the walls. Surveillance devices hummed overhead. The door sealed shut with a clang that echoed finality. "Detention quarters," Drax muttered, pacing the small space. "First contact, human style." Xerox sank onto a bench, his tentacles curling inward in embarrassment. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. Diplomacy, knowledge exchange. Instead, Drax cut him off, "We're prisoners of a species that shoots everything it doesn't understand." Neri sat rigid, her translucent skin flashing pale signals of unease. "Commander, what if they mistake us for invaders? What if they execute us before we can explain?" Vine's mandibles clicked sharply. "They won't. Humans are many things, reckless, aggressive, stubborn, but not mindless. If they wanted us dead, we'd already be corpses. 3 hours dragged like chains. Guards passed occasionally, weapons always ready. The aliens said little, each lost in private calculations. Finally, the door slid open. 2 humans entered, rifles slung but fingers near triggers. "The general wants one of you," one said curtly, eyes scanning the group. Then he pointed at Xerox. "The tentacle one. You come." Vine rose, mandibles flaring. "As commander, I should." "Protocol," Xerox interrupted, surprising even himself. "Specialist knowledge applies. This situation falls under xenocultural analysis." His tentacles shifted in a subtle gesture of trust, his species' silent reassurance. Vine hesitated, then gave a single nod. "Very well, science officer. Represent us well." Drax growled low in his throat. "Remember, they shoot things for fun." Escorted through narrow corridors, Xerox felt every eye on him: curiosity, suspicion, hostility. These humans had lived in isolation for centuries, yet their discipline rivaled Confederation forces. His heart pounded as the guards stopped at a reinforced door and shoved it open. Inside waited a single woman. Silver streaked her dark hair, a scar ran from temple to jaw, and authority radiated from every line of her posture. She stood behind a battered desk, maps and reports scattered across its surface. "I am General Augusta Parker," she said, voice rough but commanding. "You're not from any colony I know. So here's your chance, alien. Explain who you are, why you've come, and why I shouldn't order my men to put a bullet through your skull." Xerox straightened, all 4 eyes meeting hers with quiet resolve. For the first time in his career, words mattered more than protocol. He took a breath. "I am Xerox, science officer of the Confederation vessel Luminera. We came not to threaten, but to discover. We thought this world empty. Instead, we found you, humans who should not be here." "But General," his tentacles tightened around his belt, steadying his voice. "What troubles me most is not how you survived here. It's why you've armed yourselves like a world preparing for war." General Parker didn't sit. She stood like a wall behind her desk, scar catching the glow of the lamps, eyes fixed on Xerox with unblinking scrutiny. The silence stretched until it pressed against his chest. "You claim to be Confederation," she said at last. "We've heard rumors about them, distant governments, alien alliances. But no one here has ever seen proof. So why should I believe you?" Xerox's tentacles shifted, steady but restrained. "Because we found you when no one else did. The Confederation has searched for centuries, tracking lost generation ships. Records show 3 vanished without explanation: Pathfinder, Horizon, Artemis. I believe your people are descendants of one of them." Her jaw tightened at the last name. She didn't confirm it immediately, but her silence was answer enough. Xerox pressed gently. "The Artemis launched over 300 years ago with 5,000 colonists bound for the Tidy system. Navigation failure, perhaps sabotage, it vanished from monitoring arrays. For generations, its fate has been a mystery." "You talk like a historian," Parker said, circling the desk slowly. "But history here isn't words in a database. It's blood and graves." She leaned closer, voice edged with steel. "You think you've uncovered some great secret? Look around, alien. We've been clawing survival out of this soil for centuries." He met her gaze without flinching. "And arming yourselves like soldiers at war. Against who?" That question settled the room into stillness. Her lips pressed into a thin line, and for the first time her expression flickered, not weakness, but calculation. "You've done your homework," she said at last. "Maybe enough to hear the rest. But know this, your Confederation doesn't own us. We don't bow to outsiders. We've survived without your help for 3 centuries. Don't mistake curiosity for authority." "Understood," Xerox replied. His voice softened, his curiosity genuine. "But survival at this scale, this isolation, it's remarkable. My duty is to learn why. That knowledge may be our bridge." She studied him for a long moment, then tapped a console on her desk. The holographic projector hummed to life, casting a fractured image of a weathered ship's insignia, faded letters but still legible, Artemis. Our ancestors kept fragments, Parker said quietly. Logs, journals, what little survived the landing. The ship was damaged beyond repair. They settled here, thought they'd found sanctuary. Xerox leaned forward, eyes wide. So it is true. The lost colony. Lost, she repeated bitterly. That's what you call it. We don't use that word. We were abandoned. That wasn't intentional, Xerox said quickly. Your ship was presumed destroyed. No one knew. Her hands slammed the desk, startling him. Intentions don't change 3 centuries of silence. No rescue, no contact, nothing but us. And when the enemy came, we had only ourselves to fight back. Xerox froze. Enemy? Parker deactivated the hologram with a sharp motion. That's all you get for now. You've asked your questions, now it's my turn. She leaned across the desk, eyes hard as iron. Why are you really here? Don't tell me exploration. You don't send ships across the stars just to admire rocks. We survey, Xerox explained, voice steady. Map uncharted systems, evaluate resources, monitor for sentient life. When we detected your signals, we followed regulation, investigation, contact, diplomacy. She considered that, then shook her head. Diplomacy doesn't hold a rifle. Out here, survival does. And you'd better understand that fast. The door opened abruptly, one of the guards stepping in. General, long-range scouts report increased movement in the northern perimeter. Could be another test push. Her jaw tightened. Double patrols. Fortify Sector 6. No mistakes this time. The guard saluted and vanished. Xerox's tentacles shifted uneasily. You're not just guarding your settlement, he said softly. You're preparing for war. Her silence was answer enough. Finally, she motioned to the guards. Take him back. Tomorrow, we'll decide what to do with them. As they escorted him out, Xerox's minds raced. The colony was Artemis. These humans had endured centuries without outside aid, and they weren't just surviving, they were entrenched, organized, armed. Against what, he couldn't yet prove, but one truth had become undeniable. This was no forgotten backwater. This was a lost human world that had turned itself into a fortress. The detention quarters were quiet except for the buzz of surveillance drones hidden in the walls. Commander Vine paced the narrow floor, mandibles clacking softly. Drax leaned against the door, arms folded, eyes fixed on the seams of the metal. Neri sat motionless, her translucent skin glowing with faint stress patterns. Xerox had been silent since returning from General Parker's office, but his 4 eyes gleamed with restless thought. Finally, he spoke. They're not just survivors. They're soldiers. Something's forcing them to live this way. Drax snorted. Humans don't need a reason. Violence is their instinct. No, Xerox countered, voice sharp. This is different. Their settlement isn't random defense, it's systemic. Generational. They've built a fortress because they've been fighting something for centuries. Vine stopped pacing. Speculation is useless. We need facts. Xerox's tentacles flexed in a pattern of determination. Then I'll find them. You're not serious, Neri whispered. I am, Xerox replied, lowering his voice. Their guards watch outward, not inward. If I time it right, I can slip past patrols. Regulation 34C allows independent research when critical to diplomatic resolution. Vine's mandibles clicked in irritation. Regulations won't save you if they catch you. They'll shoot first, question later. Then I won't be caught. Xerox tried to sound confident, though his heart's pounded. I studied their patrol rotations. 42 minutes between sweeps. 6 minutes clear. Drax bared his teeth in something like a grin. You've got more spine than I thought, Tentacle Boy. Stupid spine, but still spine. Commander, Xerox pressed, if I discover what they're hiding, it might be the key to establishing trust, or at least understanding why they treat us as threats. Vine hesitated. For a long moment, the only sound was the low hum of the lights. Finally, she gave a single nod. You have 4 hours. If you're not back, I'll inform the humans of your initiative. Clear. Crystal clear, Xerox said, mimicking a phrase he'd once heard from humans on Earth. That night, the colony dimmed its lights. Patrols marched their regular routes along the outer wall, boots crunching gravel. Xerox crouched in shadow until the timing matched his calculations, then darted across the open ground with surprising speed. His skin shifted naturally, blending with the deep gray of the walls. He pressed against the side of a large warehouse, noting the constant flow of vehicles earlier that day. A ventilation grate offered entry. With practiced movements, he slipped inside, twisting through the ducts until the faint glow of light below revealed the main chamber. What he saw froze him. Rows of mechanical exoskeletons stood in perfect formation, combat suits, bulky but lethal, designed to amplify human strength. Engineers swarmed around them, welding, tightening hydraulic lines, mounting weapons. Beyond them, artillery cannons rested on reinforced platforms. This wasn't maintenance for defense, it was preparation for deployment. Final stress test complete on Battalion 3, a human technician called out. Good, another replied. Load them onto transports by 0600. Northern Perimeter reported movement again last night. Xerox's heart thudded. Northern Perimeter. Movement. This wasn't practice. They were preparing for another battle. He crept deeper through the ducts until another chamber opened below. Holographic displays covered the walls, maps of mountain ranges marked with clusters of red symbols. Each symbol bore the same label, Hive. Notes indicated, confirmed breaches, repelled assault, pending reinforcement. A chill rippled through his limbs. Hive. The word carried weight in xenobiology, creatures with collective minds, relentless adaptation. Not confederation, not human. Something else. Then a voice below, intelligence reports 2 new hives in the northern ridge. Expect full breach attempt within the week. Xerox's breath caught. This was it, the truth hidden beneath their hostility. The humans weren't preparing for the Confederation. They were holding a war front. A sudden clang snapped him from thought. The grate beneath him sagged under his weight. One corner tore loose, rattling to the floor below. Hey, what was that? A guard barked. Probably squirrels, another muttered. General's orders, check everything. Footsteps echoed closer. Xerox scrambled backward through the ducts, panic clawing at logic. Shouts rose, followed by the shrill wail of an alarm. Red lights pulsed along the walls, drowning the chamber in warning glow. They've spotted me, Xerox hissed under his breath. He reached an exterior vent, but the metal refused to give. His claws shook as he pulled a small geological laser from his pouch, overlooked by human guards. It sparked to life, cutting through the bolts as voices thundered behind him. Movement in the duct. 20 meters ahead. The vent cover gave way at last. Xerox dropped 5 meters to the ground, pain jolting through his limbs, but adrenaline surged stronger. Spotlights swept the compound as he dashed for the tree-lean, rifles cracking behind him. Bullets hissed past, one grazing the dirt at his side. Dogs barked. Humans shouted. Alarms screamed. But shadows swallowed him as he vanished into the forest, lungs burning, hearts racing. Only when silence replaced pursuit did he collapse against a tree. He was scraped, exhausted, but alive. And more importantly, he carried truth. The humans weren't hostile out of paranoia. They were fighting a war. And if those hives were what he suspected, the Confederation had no idea what nightmare had been festering on this world for centuries. Commander Vine's mandibles clacked sharply as she applied healing gel to Xerox's injured limb. You should be court-martialed, she said flatly. Unauthorized reconnaissance, endangering yourself, and nearly provoking an interspecies incident. With respect, Commander, Xerox winced, the risk was justified. What I saw explains everything. Drax crossed his arms, eyes narrowing. So enlighten us. What could possibly make humans turn their colony into a fortress? Xerox's tentacles twitched with urgency. They're at war. Not with us, not with each other, something else. They call them hives. Insectoid. Adaptive. Swarming. I saw maps, battle lines, defensive grids. These humans have been fighting off attacks for centuries. Neri's translucent skin rippled pale. But nothing in Confederation records mentions hostile species in this region. Which means the hives developed here, unseen, beyond our charts, Xerox replied. His voice grew steadier as he described the mechs, the artillery, the constant troop movements. This isn't paranoia, it's survival. They're holding a front line against an enemy no one else knows exists. For once, even Drax didn't argue. His jaw worked, but words failed. Vine clicked again, softer this time. That explains their hostility. We arrived in war paint to them. Before more could be said, the door to their quarters slid open. 2 armed soldiers entered, followed by General Parker. She dismissed the guards with a curt gesture and shut the door behind her. Her expression was unreadable, carved from iron and battle scars. You've been busy, Tentacle Man. Xerox stiffened. General, Save it, Parker cut him off. You snuck into our warehouse, triggered alarms, nearly got yourself shot. But instead of executing you, I want answers. She leaned against the wall, folding her arms. What exactly does your Confederation know about these things we're fighting? Xerox exchanged glances with Vine. Until today, nothing, he admitted. Our surveys marked this sector barren. Exploratory expeditions vanished here, yes, but the disappearances were never linked. Now I suspect your enemy is the reason. Her eyes narrowed. So you didn't bring them here? No, Vine said firmly. We had no idea this war existed until your weapons surrounded us. Parker studied them, weighing every syllable. Finally, she exhaled through clenched teeth. We've been fighting the swarm for 273 years. They arrived 27 years after settlement, pouring from the northern mountains. First it was creatures, then hives. Each decade they evolved, new forms, new tactics. They adapt faster than we can prepare. We hold the line, but barely. Drax growled low. Why not abandon the colony? Relocate? Her laugh was humorless. Relocate? With no ships, no contact. We were stranded. Abandoning wasn't an option. We dig in, or we die. Xerox leaned forward, voice hushed. But General, if these hives are what I think, then extermination should have been easy. Swarms overwhelm, consume, destroy. Yet you're still here. 3 centuries, and you've endured. Why? Parker's gaze flickered, just for an instant. You've noticed it too. She tapped a finger against her scar. They push us, bleed us, but they never break through. It's as if, she trailed off, unwilling to say more. As if they're testing you, Xerox finished. His tentacles shifted restlessly. Studying. Containing. That's not extermination, it's strategy. The door opened again, this time with urgency. Lieutenant Reeves, her uniform stained with dirt and smoke, strode in without ceremony. General, North Watch reports activity. Hive movement, larger than usual. Could be a prelude to something big. Parker's face hardened instantly. Mobilize reserves. Double the artillery grid. I'll be there shortly. Reeves nodded and hurried out. The general turned back to the aliens. You wanted truth? Here it is. We've been humanity's shield against nightmares in the dark. But now, she paused, eyes narrowing on Xerox. You arrived. And the swarm will see you as part of the equation. That changes everything. Xerox swallowed, all four eyes fixed on her. Then perhaps it's time we stop seeing this as only your war. For the first time, Parker's face betrayed the faintest flicker of something unexpected, not defiance, not anger, but the fragile edge of hope. Maybe, she said quietly. But hope doesn't win battles. Guns do. The northern ridgeline glowed faintly under dawn light when the diplomatic convoy rolled into disputed territory. Lieutenant Reeves gripped the controls of the armored vehicle, jaw tight, every muscle ready for a fight. Behind her, Dr. Miley adjusted his cracked glasses, staring nervously at the translator console balanced on his knees. Trailing them, the Luminara's shuttle flew low, carrying Xerox and Neri. Inside, the science officer's tentacles hovered over the universal translator's controls, his eyes never leaving the swarm signatures crawling across his scanners. Movement ahead, Reeves said over comms, voice clipped. 3 o'clock ridge. They're watching us. Maintain course, Xerox replied. No sudden maneuvers. We're here to communicate, not provoke. Easy for you to say, she muttered. You're in a ship with shields. I'm in a jeep that rattles if you sneeze on it. The convoy reached the plateau designated for the meeting. Reeves stopped the vehicle and climbed out slowly, raising a white flag on a steel rod. It flapped weakly in the mountain breeze. Let's hope they understand symbols, she murmured. Xerox activated the translator. Over external speakers, a sequence of prime numbers pulsed into the air, followed by geometric patterns, universal markers of intelligence. For 20 minutes, nothing happened. Shapes flickered on the translator's holographic display, waiting for input. Then shadows stirred at the ravine's edge. 6 swarm creatures emerged, limbs clicking against stone, iridescent shells glinting like oil in sunlight. Their eyes reflected the convoy, cold, compound, impossible to read. The largest stepped forward. Red streaks marked its carapace, and in one limb it held something shocking, a modified human plasma cutter. They're accessorizing, Reeves muttered, hand hovering near her sidearm. Hold, Xerox urged, adjusting dials as the swarm emitted a series of clicks and whistles. The translator processed rapidly, projecting crude holographic symbols, territory, danger, expansion. They're warning us, Neri breathed, translucent skin flickering with concentration. Or threatening us, Reeves countered, muscles taut. The swarm leader moved deliberately closer, then placed an object on the ground. Metallic, weathered. Reeves squinted. That's a data drive. Military grade, old, 50 years at least. Xerox's hearts raced. An offering. Information exchange. Reeves exhaled sharply. Or a trap. Still, she moved forward, each step heavy, eyes locked on the swarm. She crouched, retrieved the drive, and slipped it into a pouch. The swarm leader let out a high-pitched keening. The translator scrambled, then projected new words, harvesters. Consume. All life. Before anyone could react, the air split with a thunderous roar. A massive shadow swept over the plateau. From the clouds descended a ship unlike anything Xerox had ever catalogued, black hull etched with pulsing violet veins, symbols shifting across its surface like living scars. What the hell is that? Reeves shouted, diving behind her vehicle. The answer came not from Xerox but from the swarm leader itself. The translator caught its frantic clicks and rendered them in a single chilling word, harvesters. Purple beams lanced from the vessel's underside, carving trenches through rock and soil. 2 swarm creatures vaporized instantly. Reeves dragged Dr. Miley into the jeep as shrapnel rained down. Shuttle, shields up. Vine barked from orbit. The Luminara's craft dipped low, intercepting a volley meant for the humans. Its barrier flared, holding, barely. The swarm, instead of attacking, formed a defensive arc around the humans. One creature even shielded Reeves with its body, hissing as a blast scorched its shell. They're protecting us, Miley gasped. Xerox's tentacles flew across the translator. Guardian of boundaries, the swarm leader identified itself, compound eyes locked on the descending warship. We flee. You flee. Same enemy. The harvester vessel disgorged smaller craft, black shapes spreading across the mountainside. Reeves slammed the jeep into gear, tires screaming on stone. The swarm leader gestured toward a narrow ravine. Go, the translator echoed. Hide. The human vehicle roared after the swarm, with the shuttle shadowing overhead. Behind them, the alien ship scoured the plateau with fire, consuming stone, flesh, and soil alike. Inside the cave system they reached minutes later, half collapsed from centuries of use. Guardian of Boundaries turned to face them, carapace scarred and smoking. Its clicks carried no triumph, only weary finality. We fight. Or none survive. The translator rendered its words in eerie clarity, leaving silence in their wake. 3 species, once enemies, now trapped under the same shadow. The harvesters had arrived. The command bunker buzzed with a tension that tasted like iron. Humans in patched uniforms barked orders over crackling comms, while holographic projectors flickered with maps of the defensive line. At one end of the chamber stood General Parker, her scarred face carved from stone. At the other, Guardian of Boundaries loomed, its carapace scorched but intact, compound eyes glinting with alien patience. Between them, Xerox adjusted the translator, tentacles twitching as he tried to bridge a gulf of centuries and species. You're asking me, Parker said, voice sharp as a blade, to trust the very creatures that tore my people apart for generations. Do you understand how insane that sounds? The translator clicked, then rendered Guardian's reply, we fought you, because we must. Harvester came. We ran. You strong. Adaptable. Barrier. Without you, we die sooner. Drax growled, scales along his jaw rattling. So you admit you use them as bait? Guardian's limbs shifted in a slow gesture. Not bait. Wall. They fight well. We fight beside. Together, stronger. Reeves slammed her fist against the table. Stronger? Tell that to the names carved into our memorial stones. My father died at Henderson Ridge. You call that strength? Lieutenant, Parker warned, though her own jaw tightened. Xerox leaned forward, his voice calm, insistent. Listen to what isn't being said. They could have destroyed you. They never did. They needed you alive. And now the harvesters are here. Whatever enmity exists, it means nothing compared to this. Dr. Miley, hunched over the recovered data drive, pushed his glasses up his nose. The records confirm it. Captain Frost's final log mentioned these beings. The harvesters destroyed entire worlds long before this colony even landed. If they aren't stopped, humanity, and the Confederation, are next. Parker's gaze cut to him, then back to Guardian. You say you want alliance. Prove it. What do you bring to this fight besides excuses? Guardian extended a limb, tapping at the projector. The hologram shifted, displaying a network of tunnels beneath the mountains. Our kind, dig. Deep. Hidden. We connect your flanks. Move soldiers unseen. Strike where enemy does not expect. And weapons? Reeves demanded. The swarm leader's thorax pulsed, then split slightly, revealing a pulsing organ that expelled a vial of green fluid. A nearby soldier recoiled. Biological countermeasure, Guardian said through the translator. Neutralizes harvester energy. Painful to us. Fatal to them. The room fell silent. Parker stared at the vial, then at Xerox. Your take. Xerox's tentacles curled, excitement and dread entwined. It's consistent with hive adaptation. They've evolved weapons specific to the threat. Combined with your artillery and our sensor arrays, it could shift the balance. Parker exhaled slowly, the weight of command pressing deeper into her shoulders. Fine. But understand this, provisional alliance only. One betrayal, one misstep, and I'll burn every hive on this planet myself. Guardian's limbs flexed again, a slow, deliberate bow. Agreed. Live, or all die. Orders snapped through the bunker. Reeves began redeploying artillery units to positions supported by the swarm's tunnels. Human engineers took vials of enzyme to integrate into munitions. Confederation officers patched sensor feeds into human systems, overlaying harvester movements in sharper clarity than the colonists had ever known. It was messy, tense, but real. Soldiers who once spat at the sight of swarm warriors now found themselves standing shoulder to shoulder with them, checking equipment in uneasy silence. Xerox watched it unfold, a strange awe settling over him. 3 species, each mistrusting the other, forced into a crucible of survival. This was history bending in real time. Reeves caught his look and shook her head. Don't get sentimental, Tentacle. We're not friends. We're desperate. Sometimes, Xerox replied softly, desperation is the beginning of cooperation. Before she could answer, alarms blared. A comms officer shouted from her console, voice sharp with fear. General. Harvester landing craft, 12 signatures, closing fast. The hologram lit with red markers descending toward the colony's perimeter. Parker's hand went to her sidearm, though she wouldn't fire it here. Then this alliance has 5 minutes to prove it isn't a mistake. Dawn broke red over the mountain range, the sky streaked with smoke before the battle had even begun. From the bunker's observation slits, Xerox watched the land shudder under the descent of Harvester landing craft. 12 black vessels dropped like blades, their hulls alive with shifting violet patterns that writhed as if the ships themselves breathed. Positions, General Parker ordered, her voice calm though every eye was locked on her. We hold them at the perimeter. No retreat until my command. Human soldiers sprinted to barricades, loading rifles and rocket tubes. Mech pilots sealed themselves into their exosuits, metal frames hissing as hydraulics came alive. Along the ridges, swarm warriors dug into concealed alcoves, limbs poised, glands swelling with the biological projectiles Guardian had promised would cripple Harvester shields. Reeves crouched behind a shattered wall with her unit, rifle steady. Over the comm, she spoke dryly, well, Tentacle, if this goes sideways, remind me to haunt you. Xerox adjusted the translator strapped across his chest. If it goes sideways, Lieutenant, you'll be too busy surviving to waste energy on ghosts. The ground shook as the first harvester craft opened. What emerged silenced even hardened soldiers. The creatures resembled twisted mockeries of humanoid forms, limbs too long, joints bent at impossible angles, torsos bulging with translucent sacs that pulsed with sickly light. Their faces bore no features but smooth masks, save for sensory pits that glowed faint violet. Contact front! Reeves shouted. The harvesters advanced in synchronized waves, some firing weapons that spat beams hot enough to melt barricades, others loping forward as living shields. Parker's voice cut through the chaos, Sector 3, fire at will. Artillery thundered. Human cannons unleashed shells laced with the swarm enzyme, detonating above the attackers in fine green mist. The effect was immediate, the shimmer of Harvester shields faltered, their phase-shifting forms snapping into full reality. Guardian of Boundaries hissed through the translator, now, strike. Swarm warriors launched their own projectiles, acidic spines streaking across the sky. They punctured exposed Harvester flesh, hissing on impact. The creatures shrieked, sounds so alien they seemed to vibrate in bone rather than air. From the bunkers, human mechs surged forward, massive arms swinging rail cannons and plasma blades. A pilot's voice crackled over comms, for Artemis. The machines tore into the first wave, reinforced metal clashing against nightmare flesh. Yet the harvesters adapted quickly. Units in the second wave raised new devices, emitting pulses that destabilized incoming fire. Barricades buckled. A mech stumbled, limbs sparking as a harvester bored into its chest with a glowing lance. Perimeter breach in Sector 7, a comms officer cried. Reeves! Parker snapped. On it! Reeves led her squad through collapsing rubble, firing controlled bursts into advancing harvesters. She ducked behind cover, breath ragged. They're inside the line. Xerox scanned his console, tentacles ablur. There, use the tunnels. Guardian, redirect your forces beneath the breach. Guardian clicked orders, swarm fighters vanishing underground. Moments later, the ground erupted as they burst from hidden shafts, flanking the harvesters with a ferocity that forced them back into the open. Neri's voice rose over comms, tight with strain. Harvester signals multiplying. They're bringing in reinforcements faster than we can thin them. In orbit, Commander Vine's steady tone cut in. Luminara's sensors confirm. A secondary wave is forming. If they breach your core defenses, extraction will be impossible. No extraction, Parker growled. This is our home. We fight here. The battle raged in grinding waves. Each victory was clawed back by a new harvester adaptation. Soldiers bled, swarm warriors fell, mechs collapsed in smoking heaps. The air stank of ozone, blood, and acid. Hours in, silence fell suddenly across the command feeds. A new reading pulsed on the tactical display, one massive signal, larger than anything seen before, moving toward the eastern flank. Xerox felt his heart lurch. That is no infantry unit. Guardian's compound eyes fixed on the display. The translator rendered its clicks into 3 words that chilled every soul in the bunker. Harvester Behemoth. World Killer. The chamber went still, only the distant thunder of battle rumbling outside. Parker's voice broke the silence, low but unshaken. All right. Then we kill a world killer. The first glimpse of the harvester behemoth drained color from every face in the bunker. It emerged from the mountains like a crawling fortress, its legs each the size of towers, its central body pulsing with violet energy beneath translucent plates. Shields shimmered around it, bending artillery fire into harmless arcs. Dr. Miley adjusted his glasses with shaking hands. That isn't a unit, it's a siege engine. If it reaches the settlement, nothing will survive. Guardian of Boundaries' carapace flexed uneasily. Through the translator came the words, "We saw one before. It consumed our world. No weapon here can stop it." For a moment, silence. Then Parker spoke, her tone hard as granite. "There's always a way." Xerox's tentacles flew over his console. If we disrupt its shields for even seconds, concentrated fire might breach. But the energy required, he hesitated. The Luminara's drive core could generate the overload. Vine's voice crackled from orbit. Overload the drive? That's not just a weapon, it's suicide. Reeves muttered, better than waiting to be trampled. The room shifted, unspoken acceptance settling in. But then the obvious question, who would deliver the core? I can do it. The voice came from the corner. Corporal Thomas Rivera, a young pilot barely 30, stepped forward. His face was calm, but his hands clenched tight at his sides. Parker's eyes narrowed. Explain. The old Dragonfly mining shuttles, Rivera said. They were designed for atmosphere drills. Manual controls, minimal electronics. The Harvester's disruption fields won't fry them like our modern craft. Strap the modified core inside, fly straight into that thing's shield junction, and detonate. That's a suicide run, Reeves snapped. Rivera gave her a crooked grin. Not necessarily. If I time the release, I might clear the blast radius. Dr. Miley shook his head. Probability of survival, 17%. At best. Better odds than waiting in a bunker, Rivera replied. His expression softened. My family's in Shelter 3. Parents, sister, her kids. If this buys them a chance, it's worth it. Parker studied him for a long moment, then nodded once. Make preparations. You fly at dawn. The Dragonfly shuttle looked like scrap welded together. Rust streaked its hull, its engines coughing smoke as mechanics worked furiously to mount the glowing drive core in its cargo bay. Soldiers passed by, offering Rivera silent nods of respect. Swarm warriors clicked their limbs, some pressing strange resinous tokens into his hands, gestures of honor in their culture. Reeves approached, helmet under her arm. You don't have to do this. Rivera smirked. Would you rather volunteer? She opened her mouth, then closed it. Finally, she sighed. You're either the bravest man I know, or the dumbest. Little of both, he admitted, strapping himself into the pilot's seat. Xerox placed a tentacle on Rivera's shoulder, an oddly gentle touch. If you survive, you'll be remembered as a hero. If not, his 4 eyes blinked in sequence. I'll make sure your story is told. Rivera chuckled. Don't make me sound too noble. I just want them safe. When the Dragonfly launched, its engines roared like an ancient beast. It rose shakily into the smoke-filled sky, banking toward the eastern flank where the behemoth crawled forward. Payload secured, Rivera reported, voice steady over comms. Beginning approach. On the ground, humans and Swarm unleashed a diversionary strike. Artillery shells and acidic spines hammered the behemoth's front, forcing it to redirect shields. Shields concentrating forward, Xerox shouted. Rivera, you'll have a window at the dorsal junction. Copy. His voice was calm, almost casual. Coming in hot. The shuttle dove. The behemoth pulsed, sensing the threat. A surge of violet energy lashed upward, shaking Rivera's craft. Warning alarms screamed. They've detected me. Rivera barked. No time to drop payload. Going to Plan B. Rivera, abort. Parker's voice cracked like a whip. Sorry, General. Comms interference. His grin carried even through the static. Tell my family I love them. The shuttle slammed into the weak point with pinpoint precision. For an instant, silence. Then the drive core detonated. A miniature sun ignited across the mountainside. The behemoth's shield collapsed inward, energy cascading through its body. Explosions chained along its frame until the fortress creature buckled, legs collapsing, body cratering into the earth. When the light faded, only wreckage remained. Rivera was gone. From the bunker, Parker whispered the words no soldier wanted to admit, Godspeed, Corporal. Xerox lowered his eyes, tentacles curling in grief. The colony was alive, for now, but victory had been bought with sacrifice. The harvesters would remember. Smoke still curled from the eastern mountains when word reached the command bunker. The harvester mothership was pulling back. Its surviving ground forces disengaged with eerie precision, retreating into their black transports. Slowly, impossibly, the thunder of battle faded into silence. Confirmed, Commander Vine reported from orbit. The enemy vessel is breaking orbit. For now, they're gone. The words brought no cheer, only exhausted relief. Soldiers slumped against barricades, helmets tilted back, breaths coming ragged. Swarm warriors limped from tunnels, carapaces scorched and broken. Both sides bled, yet still stood. General Parker remained upright, though her face was lined with exhaustion. Casualties? Dr. Miley scanned his tablet, voice somber. 243 humans. 76 Swarm. Anne. Corporal Rivera. Silence settled, heavy as stone. Reeves lowered her rifle, helmet tucked under her arm, eyes burning. He saved us. No one else could have made that run. Guardian of Boundaries stepped forward, its limbs trembling from wounds. Through the translator came clicks rendered into solemn words, Rivera warrior sacrifice, not forgotten. His name will live in our memory songs. Reeves gave a sharp, pained laugh. He'd have hated that. But he'd have been honored, too. Xerox stood apart, for eyes fixed on the holographic display of the retreating harvester ship. They'll return. They don't abandon prey. This was only a delay. Parker's gaze hardened. Then we prepare. We've done it for 3 centuries. We'll do it again. And not alone this time, Vine added through comms. The Confederation will recognize this world as a frontline. Reinforcements, supplies, perhaps fleets, if command accepts the urgency. Guardian's compound eyes studied her. 3 centuries enemies. Now allies. Dangerous path. But survival demands it. Parker crossed her arms, expression unreadable. Allies, maybe. But understand this, we don't forget 300 years of blood. Cooperation doesn't erase graves. Nor should it, Xerox said quietly. His tentacles shifted in a slow gesture of respect. But shared blood today forges something new. You didn't just defend your colony. You defended the Confederation itself. Without you, we would never have known the harvesters were real. For the first time, Parker's eyes softened. Maybe. But don't mistake us for grateful dependents. We held the line alone. We'll keep doing it, Confederation or not. Reeves stepped forward, voice lower, but steady. General, with respect, maybe it's time we stop pretending we want to do this alone. I've fought the swarm since I was 15. I've buried family, friends, comrades. If there's even a chance this alliance holds, don't we owe it to them to try? The room went still. Parker studied her lieutenant for a long moment before finally nodding once. A provisional alliance, then. But one betrayal, one hint of weakness, and it ends. Guardian clicked slowly, the translator smoothing its words. Understand. We trust as little as you. But harvesters hunt us all. Together, chance. Alone, none. Dr. Miley adjusted his glasses again, peering at decrypted fragments from Captain Frost's log. The Artemis fled Earth because the harvesters were already there. That's why no rescue ever came. The revelation landed like a hammer. Parker's hands tightened into fists. Then Earth itself may have fallen. Or it may still fight, Xerox said. But the truth is clear, this war was never yours alone. Humanity's exile wasn't abandonment. It was survival. Reeves looked up at the sky through a crack in the bunker's roof. If Earth still stands, they'll need to know we're out here. That we fought back. That we're still alive. Xerox followed her gaze, his 4 eyes reflecting the stars. And that you are far more formidable than anyone in the Confederation believed. Outside, recovery crews, human and swarm alike, worked side by side, clearing wreckage and tending to the wounded. Where once there had been only hatred, now there was the faintest outline of respect. Fragile, but real. General Parker stepped to the doorway, watching the horizon where the harvester vessel had vanished. They'll come again. Stronger. Smarter. But when they do, she glanced at Guardian, at Reeves, at Xerox. They'll find us waiting. And this time, we won't be alone. Above them, the morning sun rose pale over scarred earth. Beneath its light stood the survivors of 3 peoples, human, swarm, and alien, bound not by trust, but by necessity. For the first time in centuries, the colony wasn't just holding the line. It was part of something larger. And in the cold dark between stars, the harvesters retreated, not defeated, but warned. They had found resistance.